Welcome to another fantastic full build Friday, where we've got a bit of a storm brewing. I was debating what league character I wanted to tackle next, I still have plenty to go, and with a vote that didn't really decide things, I took inspiration from some local recent rains to put together a build for Volibear, the Relentless Storm.
When all is dark and cold, I shall remain!
Before we begin, we're now on Patreon. You can get videos and monsters 3 weeks early there, as well as unique items and extra content. Even a little bit helps us go a long way. As the clouds gather and the thunder rumbles, let's take a look at some build goals. The Volibear most commonly resembles an immense polar bear, but is actually a divine being of the Freljord that embodies lightning, storms, battle, and war. Within the league, he's classified as a Juggernaut, which means that he should have solid damage and durability, but is a little lacking in mobility. He fights using his claws and jaws with melee attacks while also channeling the fury of the storm. His Relentless Storm passive causes his attacks to build up stacks that increase his attack speed, and eventually imbue him with lightning claws that arc between enemies. He charges into the fray with Thundering Smash, dropping to all fours and empowering his next attack with extra damage and a stun. His Frenzied Maw slashes at a target while marking them with the wounded status. This doesn't actually do much, but if his target is already wounded when he uses this ability, he instead chomps on them to deal even more damage and heal himself. Upon using Sky Splitter, he calls down a lightning bolt to strike in a location. When it does, he slows and damages foes within, and if he is also within the area, gives himself a shield. His final ability in League itself is Stormbringer, which has him leap to a location while powering himself up, increasing his size and reach, before landing in a devastating blow that disables turrets and harms enemies. He also makes an appearance in Legends of Runeterra, where his attacks can call down relentless storms to devastate the battlefield. To put that all together, I think capturing Volibear's savage and primal nature will be important, representing both his association with storms and the bestial form that he uses in combat. In addition to these claws and jaws, he can charge up his strikes with arcane electricity, or call down bolts from the sky to strike enemies. His ability to disable turrets can potentially be explored through effects that can destroy, or at least devastate, objects and structures. I was initially looking at the Yaoguai ancestry with the Born of Elements heritage, but ultimately, the Awakened Animal ancestry offers far better mechanical benefits. It does provide us with Volibear's Ursine form, and we can tap into the storms a bit with the Hunger Seed heritage. This means that he doesn't get his regular bonuses from the Awakened Animal ancestry, but he should still get one natural attack, and we can get another with Tooth and Claw for his ancestry feat, ensuring that we can represent both his claws and jaws to terrorize his targets with. Given the frequency that we've been using this ancestry lately, you might already know that we have a boost to Constitution and Wisdom, a flaw to Charisma, and then a free boost that we'll go ahead and apply to Strength. I'll keep it simple for his background, with Storm Survivor serving to suggest the Tempest with which he's associated. This will make him trained in Survival and Weather lore, which feels on point to me, and also gives him the Forager skill feat. Volibear is quite a bit about surviving in the wilderness under your own power, so this isn't remotely a bad get, and it further comes with an initial boost to Strength, and then a free boost to Charisma. That just leaves his classes for our ABCs, and while I have settled on Barbarian, I was debating on his Instinct for a bit. The strength-based nature of the Barbarian and its rage ability match pretty well with the Juggernaut class that he's part of in League. I did look at the Elemental Instinct before I ultimately landed on Blood Rager, with my intention being to use its eventual spells to simulate the storms that he summons. It isn't doing much quite yet, but he does at least get sudden charge for some action compression so that he can race into the fray and furiously fillet his foes. This takes some inspiration from his Thundering Smash, but it won't be our only means of conveying that. Before all that though, as a Blood Rager, he becomes trained in Athletics and Medicine, and receives further training in Intimidation and Nature, since he is a Storm deity. Finishing off with his ability scores, he'll boost his Strength, Constitution, Intelligence, and Charisma. Strength and Con should probably take priority here, but he's going to be using his spells a bit more offensively than my last Blood Rager, so that Charisma will also be important. Taking our Tempest of Terror to level 2, we are required to pick up the Blood Rager dedication, and for the sake of our Storms and Strikes, we'll be taking our training to Arcana and using the Arcane spell list. We need a spell attack cantrip, of which I think Livewire is the best option, but I'll also go ahead and suggest Electric Arc. This is a great early way to represent the scattering shocks of his lightning claws. And in that very vein, we'll use Predict Weather for his skill feat. In his case, it might be less predicting the weather and more actually being a part of it, but it's a feat I don't often take that I do think fits this particular character. There's a heavy focus on speed for 3rd level to overcome our low starting speed that we have as an awakened animal. The Barbarian gains Fierce Footfalls, while we'll be taking a skill increase with Athletics, and then Fleet as our general feat, which means we are looking at a solid 30-foot movement speed outside of combat, or 35 feet while raging. Landing like a Lance of Lightning, level 4 leads to Rising Blood magic to supply us with even more stormy spells. The first of these is Horizon Thundersphere, giving him another spell attack to smash saps with. Along with that, Quick Jump helps him get into the fray faster, and calls to mind the jump that he makes as part of his Stormbringer before he comes crashing down. We'll spark level 5 with ability boost to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma. As a Barbarian, Volibear gains Brutality, as well as a skill increase that makes him expert in survival. One of the reasons that I chose the Hunger Seed Heritage was that it gives us access to Storming Gaze. This is a 2-action ability to deal electricity or sonic damage in a small little cone, and it doesn't require Volibear to take on the Drain condition to do so, as he does have to for his spells. Our big bad Boreal Brother Bear builds Barreling Charge at level 6, which I do think fits Thundering Smash a tiny bit better than Sudden Charge, due to the fact that it lets him run through enemies, just like his ability provides him with ghosting. On the other hand though, I'm not entirely certain on skill feats for him, so what I did end up going for is Combat Climber, based on his mountainous habitat. He's used to scaling peaks and glaciers, and his own tendency towards combat means that this fits right in. We get a big old damage boost at level 7 as we acquire the Juggernaut feature, Weapon Specialization, and our Instinct Specialization. A skill increase will make him a Master in Athletics, and then he'll take Toughness as his general feat, helping to shore up the hit points that will be going up and down as he applies and removes his drained value from casting spells. For our 8th level, we've got Bespell Strikes from Volley's Blood Rager Archetype, possibly following on from the likes of Sudden Bolt or his other electric spells to capture the idea of his Lightning Claws, at least minus the arcing of it. On that topic, from his 3rd rank spells, he can acquire Haste, which can resemble the ramping attack speed of this Relentless Storm. There's also Rapid Mantle as his skill feat, which will help him in cases where he slips from the Rhyme Slick slopes that he frequents. While we are inflicting drain on ourselves through casting spells, Raging Resistance at level 9, as well as its Reflex Expertise, should helpfully help us avoid some damage. There's also a skill increase here to make us a Master in Survival. For his Ancestry feat, I would go ahead and take Wild Stride, which is meant to serve as another reference to his Thundering Smash, and the natural stance that he assumes when using it. I do wish this was more of a passive effect, but it is what it is. I'm sure it's no shock that level 10 comes with ability boost to Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma. With our Barbarian feats, we can take Renewed Vigor, and this is going to be of some import. Volley has a good bit of healing in his kit, as well as a shield on his Sky Splitter, and the temporary hit points that this provides suits that concept quite nicely. Adding an Environmental Guide as his skill feat also allows him to grant a blessing to himself and his allies so that they can treat the frigid fjords of the Freljord as a bit less harsh. Being a Barbarian, we get Mighty Rage and a skill increase that makes us an expert in Arcana at level 11. This Mighty Rage isn't a bad way of resembling his bigger slams and smashes, such as his Thundering Smash or Frenzied Maul. On the general feat side of things, there's Fast Recovery, which is a pretty standard go-to feat for my League builds, but feels especially appropriate for a character like Volibear. Looking into level 12, we've got Sudden Leap, which I intend to use to cover the jump and smash of his Stormbringer. We've got a good bit of that covered by now, but we do still need a few more pieces for it. I'd also add in Planar Survival as his skill feat, which is based on Volibear being a deity, and thus hopefully familiar with worlds beyond the one that most people are living in. The ever-lucky level 13 comes with Greater Juggernaut, Medium Armor Expertise, Weapon Mastery, and a skill increase to make us a Master in Arcana. As a Hunger Seed, we can go ahead and upgrade our Storming Gaze into Tempest Gaze, letting us put it on a cooldown to double its damage and the length of its cone, which is a pretty good trade-off when you consider that the cooldown is only for 1 hour. The Storm grows stronger still at level 14 as we seize Surging Blood Magic. Taking this a little late, we get 4th and 5th rank spell slots, with the former actually being slightly more important, since that is where we can find Draw the Lightning. It might be a little hard to find a target taller than Volibear, but using this alongside Renewed Vigor is a great way to capture Sky Splitter. I'm then adding Quick Climb to his skill feats, basing this off of the fact that our big brutish bear inhabits the cliffs and peaks of the Freljord, and likely navigates through them with some ease. For our 15th level, we'll start with ability boosts to Strength, Constitution, Intelligence, and Charisma. That increase to Intelligence will make us train in Acrobatics, and through our actual skill increase, we'll become a legend in Athletics. We further gain greater weapon specialization and Indomitable Will from our class features. And then we go ahead and add Sanguine Tenacity to our general feats. This feat helps offset the drain value that we will naturally gain as a Blood Rager, which makes it one of the best general feats you can take on such a class. Honestly, it might be worth taking a little bit earlier. The Sweet 16 for this Storm-slinging Savage sees us gain Hematocritical, since Volibear does use a bit more spells in my last Blood Rager build, so he should be able to get some good use out of this. We can switch tracks just a bit for Cloud Jump as a skill feat. With this expanding the range of his leaps and bounds, it should be a solid shoo-in for Stormbringer, as he uses it in conjunction with his sudden leap. As the thunder rolls and the lightning strikes, level 17 features Perception Mastery, Revitalizing Rage, and a skill increase to make Volibear a master in Arcana. I like Kishin Rage as his final ancestry feat, with the significant pool of temp HP it provides, and the electric damage bonus on his horns, being a good get for him, and maybe resembling a cross between a Stormbringer and Sky Splitter just a bit. If you are playing a Blood Rager, you would have to be crazy to skip on Exalted Blood Magic. Aside from increasing his spell DC, his damage from being drained, and giving him master spellcasting benefits, it gives him an extra spell and spell slot for every rank that he has. This could lead to us getting a 4th rank in Large, so that he can become huge as part of his Stormbringer. He'll further take Terrain Expertise for the mountains, allowing him to gain a bonus whenever he's using his survival skill in his preferred harsh habitat. With our 19th level, Volibear gains Devastator and Armor Mastery, along with a skill increase that makes him a legend in survival. He accompanies that with Robust Health to gain extra healing from Treat Wounds or Battle Medicine, and when all his spells are constantly digging his HP. Finishing out the build itself are ability boosts to Strength, Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma. Taking inspiration from his ability to disable turrets, I chose Annihilating Swing for his final class feat. This will let him destroy or at least severely damage structures, suiting the storming savagery that he seeks. Along those very lines, he also uses Legendary Survivalist for his skill feat, so that his divine nature grants him the ability to survive in even the harshest of environs. He's somewhat of a nature deity, which makes this a nice little nod to that. Now, as for playing Volibear, this barbaric bear is a bit of a self-buffer before barreling into battle. You can get that rage going when you roll initiative through Quick Tempered, but then depending on the nature of the encounter, you might look to enlarge or draw the lightning before more directly engaging. Renewed Vigor is a great third action to shore up your HP as you take damage or inflict drain on yourself from casting spells, though using it after an attack will make the most out of it. You do have a good list of engage options here, between Sudden Charge, Barreling Charge, and Sudden Leap, all helping you rush into battle once you're primed and ready to go. When it comes to a free Archetype game, something that I actually originally looked at was a Kineticist Dedication. It had a bit less lightning effects than I actually wanted, but it might not be bad add-on. On the other hand, the Exemplar Dedication with its Hands of the Wildling icon, especially when combined with Energized Spark for electricity, could be a great way to represent his lightning claws. It seems we've reached the Eye of the Storm, so let's take a moment to see if we've made this Maelstrom Mauler, or are just caught in the rain. Volibear the Relentless Storm is a Hunger Seed awakened animal barbarian with a Blood Rager instinct and a Storm Survivor background. He's modeled after a polar bear as a large running animal, but doesn't get the full benefit of that due to his Hunger Seed heritage, which is busy calling to mind both his divine nature and association with storms. The Barbarian class is a good stand-in for the Juggernaut class from League, especially with the damage and durability provided by its rage. Through its Blood Rager instinct, we'll be able to tap into an array of spells, including Haste, which we can use to represent the stacking attack speed of his Relentless Storm passive. The Lightning Claws it grants on full stacks can come from Bespell Strikes, Draw the Lightning, or even his Kishin Rage, though for the arcing effects, we'll have to rely on Electric Arc or Chain Lightning. we can use a barreling charge for his Thundering Smash, running down foes with the Barbarian's Furious Footfalls, and finishing off with a solid strike. To fit the feel of that stun, he'll probably have to use his heightened athletic skill to trip, or even grapple the target to simulate the idea. Frenzied Maul seems like it should be straightforward, just being a strike, as there doesn't really exist a condition to match League's Wounded. He does have different damage values on his claws and jaws, especially while raging, so maybe that could help. While it may be a little hard to use at times given his size, Draw the Lightning is a great way to cover Sky Splitter, especially when you combo it with Renewed Vigor. Without any actual limit on this action, this should honestly be a decent way to resemble the Host of Healing found within his kit. Now finishing off those classic collection of abilities, my take on Stormbringer comes from his Sudden Leap, while the ramp-up effects could suit his Kishin Rage. He further covers its effects to disable turrets with Annihilating Swing, letting him potentially wipe out or otherwise devastate a structure. Finally, in League's card game, he further calls down Sudden Storms to devastate the battlefield, which we can find in the form of Sudden Bolt. The esteemed Sire of Storms, this supersized Celestial smashes cities and civilizations to smithereens with squalls and sundering slams, while supporting a surrender to ceaseless savagery. Let me know what you think of the build and what other sorts of builds you want to see. If you dig what I've done, let me know with a like and a subscribe. I want to give a big thanks to the folks on Patreon, with a special shout out to the Orc Overlords, that being Decaffeinate, Shybenster, and Vorthis. You too could head on over there for early access to the vids and extra content. Either way, thanks for watching and have a fantastic Friday.